The unsurpassed, profound, and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in billions of eons. I now see it, here to receive it, and uphold it. I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning, to liberate all beings, thus generate the supreme bodhicitta.
Terter senxi jambo ndo xur zongro shawo gerlong tang dopa chebi kanzaglam koshia mangwe nyomong ba tang dungwa yang mangwa yeno dopa chongwa kanzagnam koshia mepe nipa tetak kyang mepr shibr shawo shirgi da changjang dopa chongwe chu jibram tambra ne ba la yondon tamchi kyang jongwa yeno dopa chongwa kanzagla yorgi me chang jangi Sambar tun magupe Wambor namkyang yirjisan chapar mabgyato. Ndo chung shopa kanzag na semkyang lochak sig nejang jikchak kanyang mamga watang. Shawa kandam chakyang toba mechang shtagda yit sambra neso. Kanglan ndo chung dan na tela mnyan depa dambe ndo chung jikyang shago. Gerlong taga kechak dungur 와 탐칠레 타르도 나 촉시브르 다브르 샤테 촉시비 추는 대와당 담비가 내인 촉시 전기 강즈는 사탕 냐리양 락브르데 촉시 메피 강즈는 리 법정의 내장 예드메데 촉시 메피 강즈는 식경 워로인 촉시 전기 강즈는 워리양 식보인 촉시 메피 강즈는 뜨든 도용 링인 쳇베 촉시 전기 냥지 네스 길 데라 촉시 집샤고
All right, so let us continue with the class on the sutra, the last Bequeathed Sutra. Previously, we've already studied about the faults of anger, of arrogance, as well as how a practitioner should also have a sense of shame. Also, we talked about the faults of, for example, indulging in sleeping. In fact, I think understanding all of those is very helpful to many people. As a practitioner, sometimes maybe we understand the theory, however, it's very difficult for us to carry out the appropriate conduct. And there are a group of people whom, for example, don't even understand it, even from a theoretical point of view. And they would justify whatever their actions are and consider their choices as correct and perfect. There's another group of people whom do understand the theory, however, do not have right mindfulness. And they would be rather quite lazy in terms of engaging in practice, and they're very much influenced by their ignorance as well as afflictions. So the teachings that's given by the Buddha right before his parinirvana, these teachings are mainly targeted to the lay practitioners and to the beginner monastics and lay practitioners. I really think that the lay practitioners could also contemplate upon these teachings at the same time. And for the monastics, you should really touch your head and contemplate upon all the adornments and clothings that you've already given up. You've already given up all of your belongings to live in this kind of to live in this lifestyle, then you should contemplate and think about all the actions that you conduct under the affliction, such as hatred. When the Buddha said that the monastics should touch their head and then contemplate on these teachings. And people would think that, oh, this teaching is definitely for only the monastics, but that's not true. In fact, the lay practitioners, though you don't necessarily have to touch your head, but at least you can put your hand in front of your heart, right on your heart, and then think about if your action would be appropriate or not. Engage in such detailed contemplation. In a narrow sense, yes, we can consider that this teaching is given to the monastics. However, as a genuine practitioner, we should definitely all contemplate upon the teaching that's given by the Buddha. Think about if I were to encounter these kinds of situations, how would I deal with all of these situations? Previously, we've already talked about how the monastics, if their actions are not even as good as the lay practitioners, especially because the lay practitioners have to carry many family duties and responsibilities, and it is that they have certain excuses to make certain mistakes. However, as monastics, since they've already given up the belongings for this lifetime, and they already are very much committed to seek the path of truth and ultimate peace. If the monastics, under such kind of circumstances, were to violate the teachings over here, then they have no excuse at all. The monastics should be very careful with their actions. Though that we've already studied the sutra on praising the qualities of the monastics, where it says that even the monastics whom already violated their precepts, but since they wear the clothing of the monastics, then the lay practitioners should still revere them and make offering to them. That sutra is more taught from the angle of generating faith for the lay practitioners, and how lay practitioners should give teachings, how the lay practitioners should practice upon the teaching of purity, of sacred outlook. However, the other day when I said that some monastics are not even as good as the lay practitioners, maybe it was an overstatement, but from the other perspective, just as it is stated in the Ulambana Sutra, where it says that it's very difficult for the people to give up everything and to become a renunciate. The lay practitioners really can't give up anything, let it be relationship or any kinds of graspings. So from that angle, the monastics definitely have lots of merit. But there are a very small number of monastics. They do have certain violations, and that is quite severe. That is considered as severe violations of their precepts and severe and really horrible actions that they would carry out. In Tibet, for example, there are times that people would engage in various kinds of quarrels, and then the great masters or authorities would come in and make certain decisions, and then people would feel that, okay, fine, since you've already made that decision, then I'll follow whatever you would consider as good. So that's how the lay practitioners would settle for certain conflicts. But for some monastics, whenever something were to go in the way that they didn't expect it to, then they would want to carry out various kinds of revenges. That is really not good, even compared to the lay practitioners. There are people with great faith and great merit, though not monastics yet, but they're very successful in terms of their personality, in terms of their interpersonal relationships, as well as practices. On the other hand, for people without much merit, even if they were to encounter all the favorable conditions, such as meeting a great teacher, meeting or staying at a pure practice place and studying the most supreme of the dharmas, but dharma would be difficult to change their mind stream. It's very difficult for them to actually implement dharma into their mind stream and to transform themselves with it. So on one hand, we can see that there are the certain number of monastics, a very small number of the monastics do not engage in the good practices. However, I think majority of them do have great courage to get ordained and then engage in the practice. That kind of spirit is definitely worth our veneration. Though there are people, for example, Dharma do not merge into their mind. They simply just changed a clothing, and their mind is not really as an ordained person. Jet Li, for example, he used to play the role of monastics as a monk in movies, and then they would pretend or they would act in certain roles as monastics, but they're not true monastics. There are people who would do so as a job. However, their mind do not change. Similarly, there are people, for example, the Dharma has not really merged into their mind yet, though they have received precepts. Receiving precepts, in fact, is very easy. It just takes about one afternoon. But if it doesn't change your mind stream, even if you wanted to get ordained at the beginning, even though you had such aspiration at the beginning, however, such kind of exterior action do not really change who you are. After shaving off your hair, after abandoning all the adornments, if you do not subjugate all the anger and aggression within your mind stream, then for this kind of monastics, maybe your practice is still not as good as the lay practitioners. There are some monasteries, in fact, they don't engage in lots of listening, contemplation, and practice. They only would perform those rituals, for example, shaving off the hair and then engaging all kinds of worldly affairs and or engage in all kinds of the 8 worldly dharmas, talking about politics and economy and arts and so on and so forth. Other than those kinds of worldly talks, in fact, the precepts as well as bodhicitta and renunciation do not really get into their mind stream at all. What can change people is really education. Education can change people. That is why in Buddhism we include contemplation and study and practice. So the first 2 out of the 3, in fact, all are about engage in study, and then the later part, that is practice, is how to adapt those studies. That is why we need to first engage in studying, especially rely upon a good teacher. A story that reminded me was Geshe Ben Gongcha, and he was rather quite barbaric before he got ordained, but after he got ordained, he became a very pure bhikshu through the pith instructions that he had studied through the virtuous teacher, and then after practicing, upholding those teachings, there's the complete transformation within himself. And for such kind of monastic, they're indeed of the most great beings. They are the ones who uphold the banner of the Dharma. They are of the great noble ones in this world. Without doing so, without engaging in this kind of pure precepts and activities, we can see that there are monastics after even getting ordained for many years. If they were to encounter any adversities, right away they would start to use coarse language and even curse the others. It is only that their appearances have changed. But after their appearances have changed, their mind have not changed even a little bit, and sometimes they got even more arrogant. And that is not a successful renunciation. What is the most successful renunciation is that once you generate the mind of renunciation within your mind, and you make that kind of aspiration of surpass the three realms and go beyond samsara, even if you can't achieve all of those, at least you should observe your pure precepts and then get along with all the rest of the Sangha member. This is really important. On one hand, I do think that the lay practitioners are doing really well within the Sangha. On the other hand, I do feel that there are some Sangha members within these Buddhist communities. They tend to get even more complicated and even more difficult to manage. I've also said to a certain department within our Sangha, I said that I'd rather find someone who is not a Buddhist and engage in the management aspect of the Sangha. Because it seems that the monastics and sometimes the Buddhists have even more afflictions than the lay practitioners. Anyhow, as a lay practitioner, you should, as any practitioner, the lay practitioner or the monastic, you should touch your heart and ask yourself, are you those kind of people who are only the kind of practitioners on appearance but do not have any genuine practice? Do you have even a little bit of renunciation? Are you here to run away from worldly life, or are you here to engage in the practices of liberation? Are you here because of fear? Are you here because of worry? If you were to run away from all of those things because of such kind of mindset, maybe you've already got out of it and you don't feel that you should continue to be a monastic, then that is fine as well. You have to remember what was your initial aspiration when you first got ordained. Of course, I don't deny that many of us indeed made the aspiration of liberate sentient beings, and that is why we took the oath of ordination. For some, I noticed that they do want to get liberated from this ocean of samsara. And for some, I think they're really just trying to run away from this worldly life. There are definitely different people have different kinds of motivations, especially the ones who can't even make a living in this world. And then they try to just run away from this life. There was a classmate of mine who said that I've heard that my classmate Sodarji, he's been getting through really well as a monastic. There are people, in fact, they're just trying to get by life as a monastic. In fact, if you were to just get by life as a monastic, for example, want to eat and drink and wear certain things and that you don't have to work, maybe for a short period of time you can, but after a while you would slowly then get back to your habitual patterns, and that's not going to be really helpful to anyone. I really hope that Buddhists definitely have to look at your own mind stream. majority of the Buddhists are definitely, I think, very good, especially in this degenerated age where there are lots of wrong views, and in such kind of degenerated time, even for a short moment, if you were to generate a little bit of virtuous roots, that's quite great already. So compared to the other ordinary beings, those non-practitioners, the Buddhists are already really good, because we do have the nectars from the Dharma teachings. Therefore, many aspects of ourselves, our personalities, their characteristics, the speech, the action, in fact, we are definitely better than the others. Let it be the people of the other religions or of no religion at all, the Christians and the Catholics. If you were to get close to them, in fact, they also have lots of complexities within their religion as well, within their groups as well. But according to, for example, the Mahayana teachings, the Buddhists upholding those kind of teachings and philosophies, we definitely would be able to get along with the others and contribute to the others. We have more of an inclusive mind towards the others. Of course, the ideal is the ideal, and it sounds very good. Whether our actions can be compatible with our ideals, it is completely up to our own practice. Now, the Buddha then continued to say that all of you bhikshus, thoughts of flattery are contradictory to the path. Therefore, you should have a straightforward disposition of mind. Previously, we've studied that it is best not to have any arrogance, not to have any aggression. Otherwise, you would not be considered as a good practitioner at all, because out of all the afflictions, aggression is of the most severe. It could destroy your virtuous roots. It could destroy yourself as well as the others. It could create a tremendous amount of harm towards oneself and the others. Such kind of faults are stated according to the chapter of patience in Bodhisattva Charavatara, as well as lots of teachings and methods to work with aggression are taught through words of my perfect teacher. And you can practice confession and so on and so forth once you generate anger. After speaking of anger, then the Buddha started to talk about flattery. In fact, flattery, you probably already understood according to Abhidharma and according to other teachings that already taught about how such kind of flattery shows a sense of a sense of dishonesty and being rather quite indirect, also lying and trying to manipulate of the others. And such kind of mind that is insincere is of the opposite of the path. According to passing the lamp of the Jingde record, it says that the practitioner's mind should be sincere and should be genuine, should be straightforward, should be forthright, and without any dishonesty. Without a sense of corrupt or crooked mind. As practitioners, we definitely should contemplate upon this. As a practitioner, we shouldn't have a mind to be dishonest to the others or to deceive the others. We shouldn't practice something else than what we preach. But nowadays, I think people are very different. Whatever they would proclaim are different than their intentions. And if you were to carry out those kind of actions, people would definitely know. And then that's going to create obstacles for yourself as well. Therefore, as practitioners, we definitely have to have the kind of mind that is straightforward, that is forthright, that is honest and sincere. And this kind of sincerity, this kind of forthrightness is different than when people say that, oh, forgive me, I'm very blunt. People nowadays, whenever they say that they are straightforward, they mean that I'm very blunt. And on one hand, they can be rather quite guileless in a way that they're unsophisticated. But the so-called straightforward over here is different than that kind of unsophisticated bluntness that may harm the others.
就单位这个情况，我们大家都知道是所谓的这个产取的话，那就是实际上是什么？
And then the Buddha said that you should know that flattery is only deceit. So people who have entered the way should not flatter. We should know that flattery is only a way to deceive the others. Therefore, as a practitioner, we should definitely forsake such kind of action. Let it be the Hinayana, the Mahayana, or the Tantrayana. In fact, as a practitioner treading on any of those paths, any of those yanas, we have to give up the practice of flattery to deceive the others. According to the Vimalakirti Sutra, as well as the 6th Patriarch Sutra, where it says that the practice center or the genuine practice is the genuine heart. If one's heart is sincere and is straightforward, then that's the true action of a practitioner. And then the Buddha said that for this reason, all of you should have an upright mind and take a straightforward disposition as your basis. In fact, I feel that people nowadays, they would say something that is a blend of both sincere and insincerity. According to the Lotus Sutra, it says that the flattery mind is of no sincerity. And for such kind of person, even after thousands and tens of thousands of billions of kalpas, they would not be able to hear the name of the Buddhas, not be able to hear the correct teaching of the Dharma, because this kind of people is very difficult to attain liberation and to be liberated. So as a true practitioner, whatever we practice, whatever we say, we have to be very forthright. We have to be very straightforward without any deceit. The Westerners, in fact, the worst thing that could happen to a person is lying, is deceiving. This is really important, and I think people over here nowadays are also getting more of influence from that kind of value system as well. According to the teachings on the mundane and transmundane taught by Mipa Rinpoche, he said that he taught that the root of being a person, being a good person, is sincerity, is that kind of dignity. Also, according to Lotus Sutra that we just quoted, we've already also learned that the kind of person would not be able to attain liberation if one's mind is full of flattery and deceit. In a worldly sense, a person has to be sincere and straightforward first. That's the root of practicing in the transmundane teachings, that is the Dharma. In Tibet, everyone really pays lots of attention to the characteristics of the others. We really look for the kind of reputations and the families that they come from. Whatever family they come from, for example, there are different the different family that they come from. In fact, there is the commonly known reputation of such family. family. Just like nowadays, how people looking for hotels online, there are different ratings and there are different comments towards that hotel. Though that the Tibetans don't really have internet to or website that has comments and recommendations of the different families, but in fact we do talk about and we do have a common understanding of the different families. For example, if the daughter from a certain family is going to be married to a different family, then everyone would know what that woman, what that family is like. So people all would pay attention to the characteristics of that family and the personalities of the father, the uncle, and so on and so forth. And people would understand how the tradition of the family would influence of that person. And there's a common understanding and common acknowledgement of that family. For example, if a woman from a woman from a family A is about to be married into a family B,
媳妇儿，你们有时候啥子发音的还可以媳妇儿。那个就如果这样的话呢，就是可能一方面是就像现在人一样，就是这个家有没有车啊，有没有这个钱啊，有没有这个地位啊，这个也可能就毕竟是很现实嘛。
The other family would also look into whether this family has a car, has money, has wealth, and so on and so forth. Indeed, they would definitely take all of those practical situations into consideration. However, more than those, the Tibetans would also consider the background of this family in general, let it be because of the previous karma or other reasons. If a whole family is all robbers and thieves, then people wouldn't really want to affiliate themselves with them. So if a person's reputation is not very good, usually it is very much connected to the family as well. Many of the great masters throughout history, they would take rebirth in the family that is of good reputation, of good wisdom in general, and the characteristics of everyone in that family are considered as stable and have lots of capacity and so on and so forth. For those kind of reasons, the masters would be able to take rebirth in this family and then would be able to propagate the Dharma. And when it's time to look at their reincarnation, usually people would feel that, oh, the master whom was reborn in this family, then they are born in this good family. That's definitely a great master's rebirth. And when for example, some turtles, if they were to be born in a family that is not considered as the ones that have good reputation, then people would feel that, oh, those great masters are only born in this family because it's their secret meaning of taming this family. They purposely were born in that family. So this kind of personal characters, the people's characters are indeed very important. The Dharma teachers, Khenpo's Khyentse, the lay practitioners, the monastics, if you have good character, good personality, even if sometimes you're tinted by some afflictions and emotions and some little shortcomings, but in general, you're considered as a good person. And of course, if you are the complete opposite, though you don't have for example, if you don't have a good personality and a good character in general, then maybe you appear to have good wisdom, good precept, and even wealth and good appearance and all kinds of merits, but it is not going to last long, and the results of whatever activities you carry out may not be that great. we can see that people are indeed very different. Though everyone looks very similar in terms of the appearances, someone has, for example, bigger ears and smaller ears, and someone has bigger nose and smaller nose. But those differences are really very minor. The major differences really appears within the kind of family they come from, the kind of dispositions, the merits, as well as the characters. Those are of the biggest difference. Therefore, I really hope that everyone can look into your own mind and deeply contemplate upon if your mind is forthright or is it full of deceit. Whenever we look at ourselves, we would consider ourselves are full of shortcomings. We have lots of deceit, flattery, and very cunning sometimes. We have our mind stream is full of the 5 poisons and lots of shortcomings. In fact, we don't need others to give us a fair comment. We can, in fact, look at ourselves and come to conclusions ourselves. Sometimes I would contemplate upon myself as well, and I constantly would think, am I being fair? Am I being used by the others? I constantly would observe myself. In fact, to have a good character as a person is really important. That is why the great masters again and again emphasized on that point. This would be a good foundation for us to propagate the Dharma. Without having a good character, then even if you were to give teachings to the others on the Dharma, even if you're very eloquent, but once people get to know you, then they probably would be able to spot all of your shortcomings and the parts of you that is rather not straightforward, and then they would definitely have a bad impression of you. This part, the Buddha talked about sincerity and forthrightness of a person. And then the next part, the Buddha started to give teachings upon desire. Previously, the Buddha talked about how a person should have an upright mind and take a straightforward disposition as your basis. And then the Buddha said that all of you bhikshus, you should know that people with many desires suffer much. This part talks about desire. So the Buddha said that if a person has lots of desires, then this person would be constantly seeking for their benefits. They would constantly seek for all kinds of benefits for themselves. And then if they were to do so, then they would generate more and more afflictions as well. According to the Vipassana Shastra, where it says that there are people whom would seek for food at first, and then after food they would then seek for more, and they would have even more desires, and after such kind of desire they would want to have reputation, and after reputation they would want to seek social status such as being a king. After becoming a king of the human realm, they want to be king of celestial realm. So we can see the desires indeed cannot be fulfilled. A person's desire cannot be fulfilled by even all the wealth in this world. If a person were to have everything in this planet, but for a person without contentment, they would not feel happy with whatever they have at all. It is because desire is very difficult to fulfill. If you need something, that kind of need can be fulfilled, but if you want something, that kind of wantingness cannot be fulfilled. It is a deep pit that would trap you. So as a Buddhist, we should definitely understand such kind of teachings. And then the Buddha said that people who reduce their desires, who are free of seeking or longing, do not have so much trouble. Similarly, they will not generate more afflictions either. So for such kind of person without much desires and free of seeking or longing, this kind of people would not have the afflictions and troubles. Of course, we're talking about this from the contentment aspect that's taught in Buddhism. But according to, for example, the economic point of view of the West, in fact, they would feel that desire is most necessary. They would not consider desire as affliction or the causes of suffering. Rather, they feel that this is the kind of motivation that would lead to a happy life. The more desire you have, the more diligent you'll be, and the more diligent people are, then the more development there will be in the human society. And then people can have an even better life. That's how the Western philosophies would feel. And they feel that people have to first have their desires ignited, and then with such kind of desire, they will generate longing and then pursue happier life. So in general, in the modern society, people's common value is that seeking for fulfillment of desire is the basis of generating happiness. They do not acknowledge and do not understand why desire is the poison, one of the three poisons. They feel that this is really a way to pursue happiness. Are these two teachings in contradiction of each other then? I don't think it is in contradiction at all. In fact, Buddhists do not have never stopped the lay practitioners or anyone to stop seeking for the fulfillment of the need in daily life. However, what the Buddhist teaching is, the Buddha actually taught on, in fact, what would harm one is that the endless desire, such kind of endless desire, such kind of lack of contentment would bring unnecessary suffering. And then the Buddha continued to say that straight away reduce your desire and cultivate appropriately. As a practitioner, one should reduce your desire and cultivate the mind appropriately. One should reduce desire. One who reduces desire can increase merit. Earlier, someone told me that the female volunteers' meals are better, but the male canteen don't really cook well. I told them it is the best not to have too much desire. Otherwise, if you were to
最好还是自己就不要太多的这种选择吧。就是现在确实我们这边的不管
If you were to
有些人觉得说你们是不是山上
want to join the female practitioners and eat together, the female practitioners has to work harder to provide more options. It is best not to have too many options. It is best to just be happy with whatever you have. In fact, many would ask me, well, living in the Larungar in such a valley, isn't it that people are suffering from the lack of materialistic providing, and isn't people living there with the great poverty and so on and so forth? In fact, I don't think we live in lots of suffering over here. We have great abundance over here. If we have too much wealth, if we're too abundant with all the materialistic providings, then that could generate more suffering. In fact, according to Abhidharma, it says that the noble one's disposition is to have less desire and great contentment. But as ordinary beings, in fact, we have an excessive amount of desire and no contentment, which lead to great amount of affliction. The Buddha said that one who reduces desire can increase merit. People who reduce their desire do not flatter in order to get what they want from the others. People who do not have much desire, they don't have to flatter others to get whatever they want. I really feel that monastics really lead a great life, because whatever people would say, whatever people, or however people try to harm you, in fact, you don't really have a weak point for others to attack you, because we've already given up everything. We don't look for the gain of materialistic benefits, nor do we look for anything that is for example, fame and so on and so forth. In fact, we would feel that, well, we didn't get ordained because we want to get famous. In terms of materialistic providing, we didn't get ordained because we want to be wealthy either. In fact, the less wealth, the better. So in this way, we don't need to flatter the others to get whatever we want, because we don't have much desire. Unlike the worldly beings, in fact, they have to flatter the others. We have to say that, oh, let me do so and so for you so that you can fulfill my wishes. Therefore, we don't really have such kind of afflictions that would be generated from this aspect. Moreover, they're not dragged along by their sense organs. For example, our eyes will not be trapped and will not be dragged by the forms, and similarly, our ears and nose and tongue and the body would not be dragged along according to the 6 objects. If you were to have great desire, whenever you look at something that looks really nice, especially because the popularity of e-commerce, once you turn on your computer, you can see all kinds of product from every corner of this world. You would log on to Taobao and the various websites, and then you feel like you want to buy everything. What if you don't have money? Then you can borrow money from different places. In fact, the problems of our society, indeed, they are all generated from excessive desire. And such kind of excessive desire without control can bring about horrifying fruition. So some of our fellow practitioners, if you really like to purchase online, then that shows that you don't practice well. In the past, all of us would just eat tsampa all day long, every day. But nowadays, I notice that some of our fellow Sangha members, they have great desire and they have lots of money. They would buy one thing today and another thing tomorrow. In fact, all the product, actually many products that's made in this world nowadays are manufactured in order to stimulate our desire. It is not because that we need something. For example, if you want a cup, if you want to buy a mug, and the advertisement of the mug would say that, oh, this cup is really the best teacup that you can ever have. Once you finish drinking from this cup, you will definitely be able to be reborn in the Pure Land, and you can see Amitabha. And after you drink tea from this teacup, teacup, you will not get sick. You will be healthy, you have longevity, and you will look beautiful. Maybe there's something added, maybe not. But they would just put it on their advertisement and start to sell the idea that you have to drink water from this teacup because the tea inside this teacup is really tasty, and then you can drink for a whole life, at least 50 years, and then you have to drink with this type of water. Upon seeing such kind of advertisement, people would feel that, well, my life would be meaningless without this particular cup. I really hope that you can contemplate upon that and observe all of the things that's happening around, and don't get dragged by a desire. I have to take a sip of my water. So over here it talks about people need to reduce their desire. People who reduce their desire have, as a consequence, a mind which is peaceful without worry or fear. In fact, for the kind of people without much desire, then their mind would be at peace and would be open without fear, without any worry, like a noble one. Our mind would be at ease, and we won't feel worried, we won't feel lots of fear. In fact, people would feel that, well, whatever happens, happens. Since they do not have grasping, then they don't have any fear at all. They don't have the fear of being unsuccessful or being discovered or being reviewed, exposed, or anything at all. Whatever they do, in fact, whenever situations arise, they're ever satisfied and never discontent. The other day I quoted from the 42 chapter Sutra, where it says that lust would lead to fear, lead to worry, and from worry it generates fear. If one were to part from desire, then where could worry and fear be generated? There are different translations, but I think this particular one from the 42 chapter sutra is easier to be understood than that of the Dhammapada Sutra. As long as you have grasping and desire, then you would definitely generate fear and worry and so on and so forth, all kinds of afflictions. But without those, then you won't have any of those at all. Over here it talks about desire. So the Buddha said that one who reduces his desire can realize nirvana. This is my teaching on reducing desire. And then the Buddha started giving teaching on contentment. I think you understand what less reduced desire and contentment is, and the difference between the two. According to Parinirvana Sutra, it says that the ones who reduce desire do not have any longing or seeking. The ones who are content, they do not generate any regret at all. So if you don't have any desire, you won't seek anything on the exterior. And for the contentment, though they don't have much, but they don't generate any regret or any sense of lacking at all. For example, if you were to remember the great master Hong Yi, who used his Tao for over 10 decades. I remember, in fact, I bought a small wooden spoon in Xiamen. I have lots of grasping towards that wooden spoon. When I was writing the journal on the footprints on the journey, that's my journal, and then I remembered that how Pachu Rinpoche had a grasping towards the wooden bowl. I, in fact, bought a wooden spoon together with Kempo Loba. He probably had lost his, but I still have mine. Anyhow, this is probably also a kind of grasping, which is not good. But what I'm trying to state over here is that someone who do not have much desire, they can use a thing for many, many years. I noticed some of our fellow practitioners wear only one thing every day for years. That's though the clothing's probably tethered already, but that also shows a person does not have any desire. But look at the modern people. In fact, their clothing can fill up a few houses, a few rooms. They would wear one today and change to a different clothing tomorrow. That would generate lots of suffering as well. Of course, there are people who have such kind of wealth and merit. I'm not being jealous of it. If you have such kind of capability and such kind of merit, you can change every hour. There is no limitation to it in terms of the Vinaya. I'm not saying that the Buddhists should all wear tethered rags and bad clothing. So that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that excessive desire would bring suffering to oneself and probably bring suffering to the others as well. And then the Buddha also said that one who reduces desire can realize nirvana. The great masters, let them be the ones from the ones practicing in esoteric or exoteric masters. In fact, they don't pay great attention to the enjoyments of the six senses. What they long for is the recognition of the true nature of the mind, or the inner happiness. That is considered as the most important for those great sages. And then if you were to remember, Milarepa in his Doha song, he said that the most priceless treasure one could have is contentment. The value of such can surpass that of numerous gold. If one were not to generate any happiness inside, seeking for happiness from the exterior world is the cause of suffering. Seeking for happiness from outside really only brings suffering to oneself. Therefore, we have to look at ourselves and contemplate upon where our happiness are generated. I'm not saying that everyone should be practicing like an ascetic practitioner and hide in caves. However, I'm saying that we should contemplate upon the happiness that we seek for. In fact, the happiness that is generated inside far surpass that of the happiness from exterior that's generated from outside. Today we will finish the part where it talks about contentment. Over here, the Buddha continued to say that all of you bhikshus, if you wish to be free from all suffering and difficulty, you should know contentment. So if you want to part from all kinds of suffering, it is best not to have too much desire. Whatever you have, you should be content with it. In fact, it is not just your materialistic belongings. It applies to the desire in all various ways. Whatever you have, that's good. And you should consider them as something that you can live with or without. This is contentment, and this is really important. The Buddha continued to say that the Dharma of contentment is the dwelling of blessings, happiness, and peace. People whomsoever have contentment, they would feel happy, they would feel secure, they would feel comfortable. Rather, nowadays, I notice that the modern people have insecurity, great fear. They are constantly abiding in the state of worrisome. They feel that they are so lonely and without any place to rely upon. They have great fear at all times. Of course, there are people, for example, do not have a job, do not have a source of income. They do live in great difficulty, and that's very practical. Not everyone can lead a life like a monastic. Some of the lay practitioners indeed have great pressure that comes from work and family and all the kinds of chores. That is very understandable. But there are some, they in fact suffer from emptiness from within, and that is why they do not have they do not generate any feeling of being secure. That is because they constantly are seeking for something and do not have any contentment. I really enjoy this particular teaching that's taught over here. It says that people who are content, although they might sleep on the ground, are peaceful and happy. Those who are not content, although they might abide in the heavens, are still dissatisfied. In the past, I remember that whenever we have guests coming and visiting, I have to sleep outside of the tent. I have to sleep in the wild. Not sure how people were back then, but it was not very well known that we shouldn't sleep right on the ground because we didn't really have much of a cushion or anything on the top. Unlike nowadays, we have everything. We have the heated floors, and we have all kinds of radiators and all kinds of heating supplies. Back then, we would just lie on the ground. Even in winters, in the summer and winter, they were happy times. We would count the stars, look at the moon, and listen to stories. And sleeping on the ground is really nothing. When I was in middle school, I started to have blankets. In fact, back then, the majority of the Tibetan were living such kind of life like that. We only would have a large jacket, and sometimes the jackets are rather quite short. We can't cover our whole body, but at that time, people were very happy, very content, and very healthy and strong too. Because of the limitation of livelihood at that time, on the other hand, because of the mind is also very happy, so people tend to be very healthy. Rather now, because of the medicine, lots of doctors would say that, oh, no, you shouldn't expose your skin because then your pores are already open up, and then if you were to take off your clothing, your skin's exposed, and then the wind would get into your body, and then you will get sick. You probably now, after being educated by doctors like such, feel that sleeping on ground would be impossible, but I've lived like that before. Over here, the Buddha also taught that those who are not content, although they might abide in the heavens, are still dissatisfied. So there are the ones, for example, we see people whom live in 7-star hotel, 5-star hotel, but they suffer they have lots of suffering. The ones who drive Mercedes and so on and so forth, they're the ones who have those luxurious cars would commit suicide as well. So mind is really the crucial point. Milarepa, whom lived in caves for the whole life without any belonging, he sang the songs of happiness. But the emperors whom lived in exquisite buildings and palaces suffer with the internal pains. So whatever is in our mind is the most crucial. Those who are not content, even if they're wealthy, still they're poor. And those who are content, although they might be poor, they're truly rich. Those who are discontent always, in fact, being dragged by the five senses. According to the Buddha Charita, it says that one should be content. If your mind is content, then you would enjoy peace and comfort. This is the most happiness that one can enjoy. For people without contentment and with endless desire, even if they were to be reborn in celestial realm, just like the Indras, they would also generate great suffering inside. According to the Great Heap Sutra, where it says that there's a bodhisattva whom received a beautiful gold-made bell in Jambudvipa, and he wanted to give it to a very poor person. At that time, he felt that the poorest person in Jambudvipa was Prajasanti, the king. It is because he did not feel content with his status as well as wealth. That is why he's the poorest of all. Some people felt that the one with greatest desire in this world right now is Donald Trump. Therefore, he is the poorest of the world, because though he had lots of money, he had many of those Trump towers and hotels, but he would not pay taxes. There are many stories about that. So some would consider that he is the poorest of all the countries. But it's hard to say, really. Anyhow, over here it says that because people are being dragged by their desire, though with lots of wealth, but they're poor indeed in their mind. There are people with not much of wealth, but their mind is of great abundance. According to a letter to a friend, Nagarjuna said that the most priceless wealth that one can gain is contentment. And for one whom have such kind of wealth, they're considered as the most wealthy. And I think those kind of teachings definitely we have to teach it to the ordinary beings so that they won't be under the control of their desire. And then the Buddha said that this is my teaching on contentment. According to the great jewel heap sutra, it says that though without anything, but if one were to abide in the mind of renunciation, the wise one would say such a person is of the most wealthy in this world. Even if this person does not have a cent with him, but if this person has a mind of renunciation, then the wise ones would praise such kind of person as the most wealthy. The renunciates, like us, the monastics, in some ways, we are the ones that knows what contentment is and do not have much desire. We do not have longings. We only need to lead to a very simple life. In fact, such kind of simple lifestyle is very important for everyone, for anyone. Whenever we go to different malls, most likely you don't need anything from a big shopping mall. People sometimes would ask me, do you need something? Do you want me to bring you something from here and there? I say that, well, even if I were to seek for myself in the big shopping malls, I couldn't find anything that I need. Don't even mention about to bring me something. So it is best not to give anyone. That is why I ask people not to give me anything. Otherwise, I would give it to the others. And people would say that, well, if you were to give it to the others, you should tell me. Well, if you grasp onto those things, why do you make offering of those materialistic things to me then? Anyhow, the values are definitely very different. Maybe the worldly beings do not accept the teachings given by the Buddha in terms of reduced desire and have more contentment. But I think in general, we shouldn't have too much desire. We should be more content as much as possible. Whatever you eat, whatever you drink, and whatever you have, in fact, are all derived from your merit. There are people, for example, who are very wealthy, and they would say that, oh, no, I only eat very simple food. I don't need anything. I have to wear tethered clothing. That is not necessary either. Your merit, in fact, if you have merit, then you can enjoy whatever things that you have based on your merit. It is not necessary for you to deceive the others by stating, oh, I don't have anything. I'm simply living this very humble life. It is not necessary. In fact, in the Vinaya teachings, it allows you to enjoy whatever object that is brought forth naturally through your merit as well. So you can enjoy those, as long as your wealth is not through through ways, for example, stealing and deceiving and so on and so forth. You can enjoy whatever you have based on your own merit. We have to really contemplate up on this last Bequeathed Sutra. Many practitioners told me that they've already gained lots of understanding through the last bequest, the Sutra of the last bequest. We definitely have to understand that these teachings given by the Buddha are of great blessings, just like how an old father at the time of death, all he thinks of is to benefit the children of his. Therefore, as the children, as the disciples of the Buddha, we have to try our best to practice the last bequest sutra taught by the Buddha. I really feel that before our nirvana, since we've already encountered this last bequest sutra, we're indeed very fortunate. From last winter, I've flipped through many of the commentaries of great masters and then translated this particular sutra into the Tibetan language and contributing my little strength to the Buddha Dharma. Therefore, I really hope that all of you can read into this sutra, which would bring you great benefit. Do not just attend the teaching and then that's it. Don't think that this is it. In fact, Chömé Rinpoche once stated that when one Dharma teaching is given, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas would be gathered in that assembly and continuously giving us teachings. Though I am just a mundane being, but I'm sure during the Dharma teachings, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are already emerged in me, in my mind stream, and after teaching, they probably would run away. But when we're listening and studying these teachings, there is the blessings that just comes through the Dharma. So we have to seize such opportunity, which would bring us great benefit later. Let's stop here today. Sunam de tamche zubanya tona nibe jana panche jirgana chi ranlong chubai
Chibum Tsunin Jova Jurvara